Nothing ever dampens your spirits, does it, Sam?
Those rain clouds, why?
Hey, Movie Sam, why don't you be honest about what else dampens your spirits? Because in this scene in the book, you were just one big grump who forgot that he had rope and let Frodo climb down first without it. And Frodo almost fell. No, he did fall and he almost died. Actually, both Frodo and Sam had kind of some huge hiking blues in this section of the book. And I really understand them in this section. They did it much more than they did in the movie. Now, I love Sam. He is probably in my top 3 characters that I love in this book so far. And I say so far because I am reading this book for the first time and publishing all my thoughts on my channel. So you should subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. We're doing some Harry Potter and some Brandon Sanderson too. Going to incorporate some other really great books as well. So you should subscribe. But I really love Sam. He's incredible, but he's absolutely more grumpy in the book than the movies really show. In the movie, it almost seems like he's this stalwart of a person who never really wavers or has his mood change depending on the situation. In the book, it is somewhat similar, but his natural default position is a bit more of an annoyed dad/servant. And it's very evident in the Taming of Smeagol chapter, where Frodo and Sam are meandering through Emyn Muil. It actually just makes me kind of wish I was there with them, because when it comes to misery and hiking, I am weirdly all about that. I love it so much. I love backpacking and hiking and just kind of being able to push through the misery that you have. And I'm going to talk about a story a little bit after, because this whole chapter kind of reminded me of something in my own life. And I think Frodo and Sam could learn a thing or two about that. However, I have to admit as well, this chapter does really show the uncertainty that both of them are facing as well, and the desire that they both have for the Shire, particularly Sam, which I honestly think is in every action that Sam does. He seems to always think and want to go back to the Shire. But this chapter, the opening of this chapter particularly, does paint a really bleak picture of what's going on. This is what it says. "Well, master, we're in a fix and no mistake," said Sam Gamgee. He stood despondently, with hunched shoulders beside Frodo, and peered out with puckered eyes into the gloom. It was the 3rd evening since they had fled from the company. As far as they could tell, they had almost lost the count of hours during which they had climbed and labored among the barren slopes and stones of the Emyn Muil. Sometimes retracing their steps because they could find no way forward. Sometimes discovering that they had wandered in a circle back to where they had been hours before. Yet, on the whole, they had worked steadily eastward, keeping as near as they could to find a way to the outer edge of this strange, twisted knot of hills. But always they found its outward faces sheer, high, and impassable, frowning over the plain below. Beyond its tumble skirts lay livid, festering marshes, where nothing moved, and not even a bird was to be seen. Now, talk about depressing. This kind of makes me understand the misery that they are going through, with all these rocks and all the times they've lost their way. The whole first part of this chapter, Tolkien really does a great job of showing just the depressing and hopelessness of this entire situation. No bird is even making any noise, which is really sad, because this is kind of the reality of life when you are in situations like this. Everyone is just a bit more testy, everyone is a bit more frustrated at the things that go wrong, and everyone just talks about food nonstop. The hunger in their bellies is actually a really important part of this, and it's something that Tolkien talks a fair amount on in this chapter. In the beginning of this chapter, the two complain about food. "I am tired, Sam. I don't know what is to be done. What food have we got left?" "Only those, what do you call them? Lembas, Mr. Frodo. A fair supply, but they are better than naught by a long bite. I never thought, though, when I first set tooth in them, that I should ever come to wish for a change, but I do now. A bit of plain bread and half a mug of beer would go down proper. I've lugged all my cooking gear all the way from the last camp. And what use has it been? Not to make a fire with, for a start. And not to cook, not even grass. Now, Sam's positivity in the movies kind of evaporates a bit. Not just from the rain clouds, but really because it was kind of never there to begin with. Never there in the first place. He's, again, grumpier in the books than the movies. He seems more irritable, and he seems to be following Frodo, yes, out of love, but almost more so out of duty and loyalty to him. Because he's keeping his word, and he's just kind of keeping his oath, I think. And I don't think Sam could go back home and face his old gaffer asking him what happened to Frodo and why did he come back early. Sam needs to do this because this is what he needs to do. I really would love to kind of see this become more of a friendship between the two and a love relationship as they can kind of continue on their journey. But I would love to see Sam develop a bit more of his motivation to follow Frodo because he truly loves Frodo. And not that he doesn't. And not to say that he doesn't now, because he truly does. Truly. And I think if you read the books, you already see his growth in this love for Frodo that I'm kind of hoping is there. I think before Lothlorien, Sam was excited to get back to the Shire. When that chance passed him by, he got annoyed. And the big moment for Sam was that it was like still one of the saddest moments in the book. It's one of my favorite and saddest moments in the book when he had to let Bill the pony go. And he was furious that he let Bill go and that he had to follow Frodo into the mines. But he went because he had a duty. And then they go into Lothlorien. And the text talks about how Frodo and Sam truly become inseparable there. It felt like that there was kind of the moment that changed, where Frodo was spending more time with him as opposed to Merry and Pippin. Because up until that point, I think Frodo liked Merry and Pippin a little bit more than Sam. And now in the Emyn Muil, and they're kind of away from the Fellowship, there is more love between them, but there is still very much a duty that Sam seems to be carrying. And that duty almost gives him more permission to be grumpier, which I kind of love. I mean, look at what Sam says when Frodo suggests they might find the way. Well, he said at last, withdrawing his eyes, we cannot stay here all night. Fix or no fix. We must find a more sheltered spot and a camp once more. And perhaps another day will show us a path. Or another, and another, and another, muttered Sam. Or maybe no day. We've come the wrong way. So it's Frodo in the books who is the optimist and Sam is the pessimist. If I was backpacking with someone as sour and annoyed as Sam, I think I'd rip his head off. Because it's just annoying when you're walking a long, long way with a person like this. But I think that I like this most about Sam. And I think this is kind of one of the things I do like most about him, is that in spite of everything around him, in spite of all the annoyances and the things he has to deal with, he is still following Frodo. That alone is worth its weight in gold. That he is furious and grumpy. He's walking over these rocks. He'd rather be in Hobbiton, kind of just enjoying the grass. And he is also a bit annoyed that Gollum is kind of following them and they can't be rid of him. But he still is following Frodo every step that Frodo takes. It takes a great deal of courage and strength to do that. And a lot of strength of will to do that as well. And I think that speaks to the character of Sam. More than the moment than if he were following Frodo out of love. If he were doing that, you may actually see, I think you might actually see it waver a little bit more than it does at the moment. But again, I want to be clear. I still think Sam has a deep love of Frodo, but this whole rock scramble and climb that they're doing at the cliffs of Emyn Muil is just so reminiscent to me of like other situations that I've been on. And I think that Sam is doing this out of a bit more of duty than absolute love and loyalty of Frodo. But it kind of reminds me of a trip I took to Yosemite too. So this is a little aside. Especially the part where it rained a bit and the rocks became slick and they had to go down these rocks as the thunder started rumbling. Because 2 weeks ago, I climbed Half Dome in Yosemite. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I hiked up it, not rock climb though. And the cables that you kind of get up to get up this this rock face are pretty insane, and it kind of feels like rock climbing anyway. And it was brutally difficult, to be honest. The entire first 5 hours of the hike was perfect weather, and I was so excited to get to the top and be able to see the views and just kind of be up there. But as we got to the base of the subdome, there was a park ranger there who told us that there was a storm coming and to not be caught up there as it was raining, because a bald rock face that is on one of the highest points in the park with slick rock is not the place you want to be in the middle of a lightning storm. So I was rushing. And so we climbed the base of the subdome, got up to the subdome, which took about a half an hour, up tons and tons of steps. I think it was like 900 feet of elevation and for like a half-hour walk. And it was like only like a half mile. And we found ourselves at the base of the dome. And so I quickly repackaged all my things, and I looked to my right and I saw some dark clouds approaching, but I wanted to get up even just for a minute. So I had just hiked about 10 miles to get to this spot. I wasn't going to stop now. So I rushed up the cables as fast as I could. But I'm not kidding, that was brutally hard. And by the time I was up there, by the time I was halfway up, I was spent. I was completely exhausted, but I kept going because I had to get up. And I caught up to this guy in front of me who was this 88 or 68-year-old man, and he was climbing Half Dome for the second time in his life. This guy was a legend. His name was Jay. And as soon as I caught up to him, we both heard a massive peal of thunder roll across the valley from the storm that was looming overhead. Jay actually got this picture of me when we were at the top. We knew we didn't have much time, so we said that we'd stay up there for about 5 minutes and then rush down. To our luck, though, the rest of the people on the top of Half Dome all rushed down because of the thunder. So we essentially had the whole rock to ourselves for 5 minutes, and we were just kind of up there hanging out. It was incredible. Such a cool experience. But we did rush down as soon as we started to hear thunder. Kind of made me think of like Frodo and Sam climbing down this rock in the wet thunderstorm. And luckily for us, the rain never came, but this whole hike was just so incredible and I loved it so much. And as soon as I got back from the trip, the first chapter I read is this one. So it just felt really like appropriate. When Sam and Frodo are scrambling down the rocks and are terrified that they might get hurt and fall, I know that feeling. And I know it all too well because I kind of just experienced that. And the panic that sets in when you're doing something like this is particularly freezing. But in spite of all this, I think I am most impressed with the optimism that Frodo possesses and the just do it attitude that Sam has. Because there is a moment when Frodo, he's about to climb down this rock face. And this is what the book says. He strapped his belt outside his cloak and tightened it and settled his light pack on his back. Then he stepped toward the edge. "I'm going to try it," he said. "Very good," said Sam gloomily. "But I'm going first." "You?" said Frodo. "What's made you change your mind about climbing?" "I haven't changed my mind. But it's only sense. Put the one lowest as is most likely to slip. I don't want to come down atop of you and knock you off. No sense in killing two with one fall." Before Frodo could stop him, he sat down and swung his legs over the brink and twisted round, scrambling with his toes for a foothold. It is doubtful if he ever did anything braver in cold blood or more unwise. No, Sam, you old ass," said Frodo. "You'll kill yourself for certain, going over like that, without even a look to see what to make for. Come back." He took Sam under the armpits and hauled him up again. "Now wait a bit and be patient," he said. Then he lay on the ground, leaning out and looking down. But the light seemed to be fading quickly, although the sun had not yet set. "I think we could manage this," he said presently. "I could at any rate. And you could too, if you kept your head and followed me carefully." I think this story alone just shows so much of the character of both of these people. Sam Gamgee is foolish, but will do things to protect Frodo, even if it leads to his own harm. And Frodo is a bit more rational and a bit smarter to tackle things, but also just he just has a desire to keep going where they need to go. And he's a bit more of a leader than the movies really show him out to be. And I have to be honest too. After the first chapter, I think I am going to miss Merry and Pippin and Aragorn and Gimli and Gandalf and Legolas. But I am so happy to be back with Frodo and Sam. They're probably number 2 and number 3 on my list of favorites in the book. Guess in the comments who's my number 1. If you've been watching my videos, you know. So I'm really excited for the rest of this part. And I cannot wait to keep reading about Frodo and Sam. Anyway, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.